Welcome back to Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and today we have a guest or maybe two on the pod. So I'm super excited today to get to introduce you guys to Georgia and Micah McMaster. They are here in Charleston with me, but yet for some reason we FaceTimed. We're not actually like in person together. What were we thinking? But anyway, say hey guys.
What's up, everybody?
They're like, how do we say hi at the same time without it being everyone talking at the same time?
I know, Alex, like, why did we could have just like come to your house and done this podcast?
Literally not sure why we did this, but it's fine. And we made it so complicated too before starting to record for no reason. Like for real, busy season has been wild. Yeah. But yeah, so like I said, Georgia and Micah are Charleston based. They are wedding photographers. They do all things couples. They're educators. If you're not following them, what are you doing? Like Georgia, I feel like you are like the master of education online. Like you seriously just put out so much and I just love it. They are story driven, film inspired, super timeless. But I also feel like you guys have a lot of motion in your pictures, which really aids to like the storytelling side. So we're going to talk a lot about storytelling today and I'm excited. But I know. So why don't you guys introduce each other really quick and just kind of like chat for a second. Tell us who you are.
Okay. You want me to go first?
Sure. You can introduce both of us so you're not talking.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I am Georgia. This is Micah. We are a married photography. We do a little bit of video, but we're mainly photography team based in Charleston. We do a lot of destination work. We've been married for going on 3 years. It'll be 3 years in July.
Congrats.
Yeah. And then I guess year 5 of our business will kind of commence in August. So that's kind of exciting. But yeah, we have a dog, golden retriever named Crew. She's my little baby bean. I love her.
She's so cute.
She is. Oh yeah, you got to meet her.
Yeah, literally just the other day.
I know. But yeah, so we do, yes, lots of weddings, lots of elopements, couples. That's kind of our jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you get into like wedding and couple photography? Like what led you to that niche specifically?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I was in college, I went to UNC Charlotte and I was doing like all my seniors, friends and, just everybody was like, can you take my pictures? And I was like, yeah, sure. I had like a Canon Rebel. And then I was actually at a baseball game and we were all kind of drunk. And this girl was like, I'm like shooting my first wedding this weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh, do you need help? And she was like, yeah. And so I like second shot my first wedding with her. Like
that is weekend. How you got into it. That's actually so funny.
At a baseball game. We were just like, I had just like met her and her boyfriend played baseball. She was like, yeah, I'm a photographer. And I was like, wait, like that's so cool. And like, she was kind of the person that I like would ask questions to, like, I didn't know anything, so she really taught me like a lot. And so cool. I started second shooting with her for like 2 years and she started paying me and I was like, oh, like this is kind of cool. But I was like, I'll never do this because my first wedding, I remember my feet hurt so bad. And I was like, this is not it. But then jump forward, like maybe 2 years later, COVID hit and Micah and I had met. He had started going to like senior sessions with me. So he was starting to kind of get around it. And then, COVID hit. My friend was like, hey, my photographer doesn't feel comfortable shooting. Would you come shoot our backyard wedding? And I was like, yeah, like I've never done one by myself, but I feel comfortable enough, now. And so Micah got me my first Mark IV and he took the Rebel and made a wedding video.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I shot the wedding and then
terrible.
Yeah, it gave like Super 8 vibes on a digital camera because it was so shaky.
Stabilization. I didn't have a gimbal.
Nothing. It was cute though. Like, and anyway, so we started posting about them, like, and then we were booked out like by 2022. So it was kind of crazy. Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay. So Micah, tell me about that. Like you jumping in and everything. How did that feel at first? Were you feeling like, no, she's the professional and I'm just kind of here? Or like, what did that look like for you guys?
Well, I would say I was more of the visionary. Like when I was going to the graduation shoots with her, one day she came back to the house and I was like, let me see like the photos that you took like after you edited all that. And she showed me and I was like, dang, gee, these are like super cool. I've like never seen photos like this before. When you think of photos before me, I didn't have like experience.
Yeah.
You think of like graduation, like flash and all that, but they were super cool. I was like, gee, you can like have a business doing this. She's like, nah, I can't have a business. Pretty much. And then, that opportunity came in regards to
The wedding.
shoot that wedding. I was like, look, this is your chance. This is your opportunity. I was like, I think that Friday, I was like, there's something on your doorstep. And I had bought her
like the whole kit. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm about to be emotional right now. Like, you forget it. Wow, I'm like literally crying right now. When you like forget about things in your life and your partner, I'm like,
Aww.
Yeah,
That's
really
so
did.
sweet.
Like, I remember because I was so like, babe, like, there's no way I can shoot a wedding with a rebel because it would take forever to get through. Like, you would take like 5 photos on it. It would be like busy.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way I can do it. And so, yeah, I like got home and there was like this huge package and he had bought the like kit on Amazon where it comes with like everything. And so, yeah, he bought me my first big boy camera because like, I just was so afraid to like invest in myself. And oh yeah, that was sweet.
Since then.
Yeah.
That is so sweet. I love to hear that like you just saw something in Georgia, something that she couldn't even see in herself and like pushed forward her business in that way. And then now fast forward, look at you guys, you're married, doing a business together, like educating other people on how to lead their businesses and investing in them and seeing things in them that they never saw in themselves. Like that's just kind of a cool, like full circle thing. And I didn't mention this before, but Georgia and Micah actually spoke at Photo Camp and in March, and the top secret thing that we haven't technically announced is that they're speaking again. So I'm so excited. But even in that environment, it was really cool to see people like after you guys spoke come up to you and just be like, okay, I have so many questions. And you guys be like, oh my gosh, we're in it with you. Like we're jumping in the boat with you. Like what questions do you have? We're here to answer anything. Like just watching how open you are with others and how you encourage others was really, really cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I think that's like our biggest thing is like, it's so hard figuring this thing out. And like, I mean, we're still figuring so much. Like, I just feel like every day I'm like, oh, like we should do this or like, oh, like we should do this better. And
I believe there's no blueprint to photography. Like it has,
or just
like, so it's so new, like it's such a nuance, like just due to like social media, it's like changing every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks different, like where you can go like real estate. There's like blueprints to like how to flip houses and like certain bird methods and things of that nature. But like when it comes to photography, it's just like you're just kind of winging it. Like you just figure it out on the fly.
It's like that. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's such a pairing of art and creativity alongside business. And because of the art and creative side of it and being an entrepreneur, it's like you are crafting it yourself. You're crafting it for how you want your life and schedule to look like, for how your personality was created. Like just all of these like cool things about yourself and how you want your life can be fit into a business model. So you're right. It is like so unique.
It is. And and that's what's tough too, is like you have to figure out what works for you. And like the biggest thing I always talk about too is like you have to play on your own strengths. And like, of course there's like X, Y, and Z. Like you need to have certain things set up, like systems and contracts and, those things that everybody needs. But it's like even the way like I may like handle an invoice is different than the way you handle it. Or like, I know some people who are like, oh yeah, like we have people sign like on the call. And I'm like, yeah, I just send it after and I've never had problems, so.
Then there's me. I'm like, I hate doing calls. I'm not doing them,
Right. And I'm like, I love calls. I have calls with like every single person. So yeah. And I think that's the tough part too, is like you teaching people like ways that work, but also fostering almost like independence to be like, you can figure it out. Like, you kind of have to figure it out yourself and take all these different things and be like, oh, like this works.
Yeah.
And this doesn't.
Like taking the little things. 'Cause I feel like you talk about this a lot of where people will teach you something and it feels like that's the only way to do it. And it's like, no, it's
not true.
So many different ways that you can do it. Just take bits of each and see what works best for you.
Yeah.
I really love that. And I think honestly, that's a great transition into kind of like our topic for the day. Cause I wanted to talk with you guys specifically about storytelling and storytelling through couples and through like couples photos. And I think you guys are just really naturally gifted at that. Like every photo that I see you guys post, I'm like, oh my gosh, the story, like the story's just there. But I think like everything we just said is also true in this, where like no one can take like your roadmap specifically of how you storytell and take your brain and copy paste it onto their photos because it won't be authentic to them. Exactly. And that's part of creativity. You know, like if I did that, it would be so not me, but I can take some tips from you guys, put it into my own world of like what it means to storytell for seniors, you know, based on how you guys kind of look at it for couples and like make it my own. But with that, I want to start with just asking like, why is storytelling so important in photography and specifically in couples photography?
Before you start, that was a smooth segue right there. Alex knows what she's doing.
Alex is good.
I cannot with y'all.
Alex is the best podcast interviewer. No. That was really good. Yeah, I love this. I love that question. And it's funny. I've never really gotten the question of like, why is it important? It's just more so like, what is it? Or like, how do you do it?
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that like I always go back to is like, I love people and I've always loved connecting with people and I've always had an easy way of connecting with people. Like I can just talk and I'll share my whole life story and some people are probably like, I didn't ask for that, you know, and I'll be like, okay. But I think when it comes to like why it's important is because like every person and every couple is different and you have to be able to like tell their story. Like me and Micah's story is a lot different than like, you know, another couple's story. And so if you don't understand their story, like how can you tell it? Right? Like if you think about like a documentary, like they are telling someone else's story, but they like did all this work before the documentary ever come out because
that's good.
They had to tell their story. Right. So we're the same way. So it's like, it's so important because we have to know the story to then be able to tell it. And so I think why it's important is because like, that's the whole point of pictures is to look back on a moment and be like, oh, like you remember how you felt.
Yeah.
And then not wanting to like cringe because that wasn't your story.
Right.
Compared to like shooting us, just like really playful, like running around. Just that's our relationship.
Yeah.
But if we were just still and just like
if
very
if me and Micah.
Yeah.
If we were doing a shoot like specifically for us, like obviously we've done multiple shoots where like we can do those things now because we've seen it done a ton of
model,
times.
But like if it's for you.
Even to this day, it's like I still like really want photos just in our house that like feel like us and you know, because that's what when you look at them, you're like, that is me, like versus looking at other photos where you're like, yeah, that's just like that's not my vibe or that's not who I am. And so yeah, like you have to be able to know a story to be able to document it. And that's why it's truly so important in this industry because stories are so complex too. Like
it is.
They're not just like boom, 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 you're done. Like and everyone's different and everything is I don't know.
It's kind of like so last night we was in Savannah and we walked them down where they met and like on city stairwells.
Oh yeah.
Steps.
Oh cool.
And it was almost funny because it was almost like we was recreating the scene without being there. We was creating a story of like this is where they met, this is where they had their first drink, this is where they like had a kissed or whatever. And it was just like to form that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Small. It's like a Netflix series in your head.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And go ahead.
No. You go. You're good.
I was just going to say, so I feel like in order, like, I love what you were talking about with the documentary kind of thing, because that just like puts it into perspective of, okay, before this whole like documentary series or movie or episode comes out, they have to do so much prep work for it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that prep work has to come from your client experience. Yeah. So how do you craft a client experience that sets you up well for storytelling? But also, how do you do that without it feeling overwhelming to the client? Because I feel like it is a lot of like prep on your end. So you do have to have a lot of information.
Yeah.
Do they ever feel overwhelmed? Like, tell me everything.
I don't think they ever feel overwhelmed because it's like, I think we are so good at just meeting people like where they are. Like, like when we on a call, again, when we do our consult calls, it's just like, we just having a genuine conversation. Like, what are y'all like doing? And then we just start, like, our calls last longer than it's supposed because we just talking at this.
You're just yapping.
Like, it just,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, from that information, we like, okay, now we know who they are, what they're like. And then now we can think about, like, what would be comfortable to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think like some like practical things that like we do, cause like, right, you know, you think of people who are shooting documentaries, like they're doing interviews with people, they're out getting B-roll footage, they're pulling footage from the past, right? So they're like doing all this work. So like, obviously it looks different for what we're doing because we're not shooting a documentary. But when you think of it, you know, right, we do consult calls. So that's like kind of like the number one thing we do, which is like basically we talk, like Micah was saying, kind of get to know them. And like on the call, we like to kind of figure out, okay, what location do you feel fits you guys? So, you know, some people may say like, oh, we met on the beach, so we want to do a beach session. Or like last night, they met in Savannah. They had a specific street, which was where the staircase was. And they're like, that's the most important part. But then they also talked about how like they go to this park every like Saturday for like morning farmers market. So like that was incorporated. So I think too, finding out like locations that are meaningful, and then like time of day as well. Like obviously most of us shoot at sunrise or sunset, but also too, depending on the vibe, like maybe a middle of the day might fit it better, or maybe like a nighttime shoot where you can get those moody feels, or maybe you're doing like a late night pizza run. So it's like maybe shooting at night would actually make it feel more authentic. So I think those are some like practical things that we kind of like ask, you know.
You know the crazy part? And I just realized this as you was talking, like, we just went to British Virgin Island and we did the welcome party.
Mm-hmm.
And the bride was telling us how that there was a certain spot that they said they always get married at or take photos. And then we end up going to that spot.
Yeah, like they basically, they were like, when they were there, they said they just knew like 2 years ago they were standing there and they're like, we're going to get married here one day.
Aww.
And then we were there and it was cool because we were like, well, we got to take photos in this spot. And it was cute because she posted like the photo that they had taken that day from like 2 years ago. And then the photo we took, and it was really cool. So,
so sometimes you do it, you don't even know.
Yeah. And so I think like those are some things like prep work that you kind of do beforehand. And then also too, like mood board creation. So like I'll either have them send me like photos that inspire them, even like outfits too, because outfits are a really big part too. Like, cause there's outfits that like even me, like I know I would feel more of myself in, or vice versa. And so you kind of pull that all together beforehand, and then you can kind of dump it all into one mood board. And I even like to like put all the pictures down of like what's inspiring me based on the location, the outfits, the poses. And then I can kind of look at how the photo is and be like, oh, maybe I could have them run around in a circle and pull into a hug to try to get this. Or I'm going to do some laying down shots and maybe try to get above or below, you know, depending on like what the composition looks like. And so then you're kind of prepared when you go into the shoot. But then the client experience doesn't really end, because once you show up to the shoot, that's where it really starts to like unfold. Like you've already set yourself up for success. So you're like, outfits are good, location's good. Everyone feels like they know what's about to happen and no one's kind of like blindsided. So you almost take that part out of it, and then you can just kind of like freely be like, yeah, like I want you guys to lay down. And they're not like, okay, like that's weird, because you've already been like, yeah, like we're probably going to do some laying down poses or whatnot. But we just like, we really like to bring ourselves into the shoots as well and just like talk. We're probably talking probably like 90% of the shoot, and just like getting to know them. And the more you talk and ask questions during the shoot, you'll actually learn more about them as well. And even like last night, like we realized like how important that stairwell was. So it was like, okay, like we kind of spent more time there because it was really important to them, and just like kind of use the environment to our advantage. So like I would shoot through trees, or I even went up on their staircase and shot some from above, shot some from like across the street. And so being able to kind of tie the whole story together from all those different perspectives, because I knew like that was really, really important to them.
I definitely feel like perspectives and like getting different little angles or from far away, that I feel like pulls a gallery together with storytelling a lot, even with seniors.
100%.
Like I had a senior the other day who She was just a little bit harder to pose. She did better with less motion shots, which for me, I storytell a lot with motion. And so I was like, okay, well, let's do some more posy ones. But when she was further away from the camera, she felt more comfortable. And so I would have her like turn around and walk. And we were over in Waterfront Park downtown. And I was like, why don't you walk down that path? I'm going to stay back here, kind of get a shot through the flowers and you can see everything. And she's like walking super far away from me. But in the gallery, it like pulled it together so well because it was her doing something and I was just far away. Like it was just a different perspective than her like smiling at the camera or whatever, you know? But so do you go into, I know you talked a lot about the prep work with all the poses. Do you go into the shoot with like a specific shot list in mind or more of like, okay, I was inspired by this, so I'll probably do it. And then you just end up doing it.
Yeah.
I would say mostly that. And I feel like now I kind of have, like, we kind of have just like poses that just work that I find myself kind of always going to. And every shoot's different, right? So like we just did a car shoot last week. So those are completely different because you have a prop you're working with there. It's way more editorial. So you can get away with just like really kind of those just traditional classy poses. But for the most part, I feel like it's just like vibes.
Yeah. The most part is vibe. It's not winging it, but it's just like, you're just going off of location. Like, that's why we think location is very important because it's like downtown. Sometimes we go down there and we're like, we just gonna walk.
Yeah.
Then we follow the light.
And
figure it out from there.
And the like couples energy as well. Cause like you said, we've had some couples who would do a cartwheel if you asked them to, but then you have some couples where it's like they're more reserved to where it's almost like less movement is actually easier for them.
Right.
And so a lot of it is just reading clients as well. And like, I'll kind of walk them through like, you know, of course we start off with walking and spinning. And that is actually a really good one to kind of see. Like, I feel like even just adding in a spin and seeing how they adapt to that. It's like, oh, okay. Like they're really like immediately yesterday, as soon as I told them to spin, I was like, oh, they're giggly, they're laughing, they're easy. But then sometimes you have people where you're like, okay, like that was really awkward and uncomfortable for them. And I could tell. So we're going to pull back. I'm going to just have them stand, maybe looking at each other and just, we'll get there. We just need a little bit more time versus some people you're like, oh, great. We could go do whatever at this point.
That is so funny that you said that because those are my 2 test shots too, like, or test poses too, even with seniors. Like it's an individual, so it's different, but I literally have them walk to me and I have them do a twirl and see like how they move with that. So it's funny that we do the exact same like motion testing shots.
Well, I feel like too with like a twirl because like you can see how either like, you can just tell how much they're thinking about it or how much they're not thinking about it because like, you know, if they're just letting themselves twirl and not even think, you're like, okay, cool. Like we can just kind of flow. But then if you see that they like, they were processing like where to do, you're like, okay, they're going to need more of a step-by-step direction, which is like totally fine. Like
everybody changes the way that you interact with a client. So 100%. It's good to know. Yeah.
And you can still storytell the same way. It's just, I might need to say, you know, do X or X, Y, and Z versus saying like, oh, go give me a twirl out in the field, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so question, and this kind of goes back a little bit to when you were talking about like planning and kind of having the storytelling in mind. So you were talking about, okay, if it's where they met, I'm going to make this the location. What about clients that come to you guys and already have a shoot idea in mind? And it really honestly has nothing to do with their story. It's like you mentioned the car, a vintage car. And I'm thinking like a lot of the time vintage cars are just cool and they are there for the vibes, but it might not speak to their story specifically. How do you storytell around that to make sure it's still like about the couple?
That's a really good question. You want to go?
I did not plan for that question. No, so sorry, it just came to me.
That's a really good question.
I would say someone that has an idea like a car or something, they already told you their story. Like, you don't have to sit there and figure out like,
I didn't even think about it like that.
You want to do this, you want to do that. They already have an inspiration. Like we do sailboats. It's like they're already inspired by sailboats. So it's like it takes off, I guess, the brunt work that we do.
True.
And I think a lot of that comes down to how you have branded yourself over time. Because with us, I think a lot of times is like people will go and look at your portfolio and they'll see that you did a shoot and they're like, I love that. I want to recreate it. And so it's almost like you kind of have set yourself up to a point where like you're kind of showcasing like what you're capable of doing, and then people see that and they're like, yeah, I just want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think there is you're right, because yeah, it's like, I feel like vintage cars and stuff like that, it's more just because it's vibey and cool and an experience. But I think maybe you could look at it as like, this might not have been a part of your story of how you met or anything, but it's going to be part of your story now that it is your engagement shoot. And so now you'll kind of always remember that. But I think it's just a lot of the branding. And I think there are times where on a call, like you are talking to somebody, and that's why I think calls are very important, because they may have ideas of like, oh, I've seen the car, or I've seen this, like I'm kind of open. And then you can like talk to them about, okay, what do you guys like to do? What do you like feel like is you guys? And then you can kind of lead them in different directions, because the biggest thing I tell people with cars is like, hey, you got to be really comfortable with like posing, because it's a car, it's classy. You got to be more of like this editorial vibe.
Yeah.
Like we can't be like, you can't move as much in the car. And so once we kind of tell people that, they're either like, oh, okay, like maybe that's not what I want. And then we can maybe work towards something else, or maybe getting the car in a different location. So like sometimes I'll be like, hey, like maybe let's try to do it at like Middleton, because then we could do the car for a little bit and go run around in the field. So I feel like there's ways to work around it if you feel like it might not be a part.
I love what you just said, Georgia, because like unintentionally, you kind of said like you don't always have to do what the client wants to do. And I say that in a harsh way, but what I mean is like sometimes I think when we first get into our businesses, like if a client says, I want this date, then what do? We curve our schedules to make sure that we can shoot on this date and at this time that they want. When really, like, actually, if they want you as a photographer, they'll be fine to move their date a lot of the time, you know, not for a wedding, but like for a regular session or whatever. And all you have to do is guide them. And I love what you just said, because it is like guiding them. They came to you with this idea and you're like, but hearing your story, this might be better. This might be better. Or let's add this to what you want to do. And like you're guiding them. And you don't always have to, just because we're a service-based thing doesn't mean we curb always to what the client wants. We just help them see what they want sometimes.
I love that.
They don't know what they don't know a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah.
It's the same way of like, I think with our business, it's like when you go to a like car dealership and they like tell you something's going on, like this would be the best way of going about it. It's the same way with us. We're not telling them what to do. We just give them a little more guidance of like, because we've seen it time and time and before.
Exactly.
People first time for engagement photo, first time ever together. So it's like, all right, like if I was in your shoes, I would look at this way, and then they make the decision ultimately.
And I love that you said that we can guide them, because I remember when we first started our business, like I really thought that like, oh, anytime a client said anything, like that we had to do it there. Even like locations sometimes, like 'cause even living in Charleston, right? There's like tourist spots that like if you Google like where should I take photos in Charleston? Like they might say White Point Garden. Well, I don't know if you know White Point Garden right now. It has a huge construction zone. And I'm like, I'm not shooting there until it's
ugly
done.
right now. Yeah.
You know, but if you're just like, okay, like we'll do that when they're just putting down a location. And so this happened even the other day on a call. You weren't on the call, but I had an engagement session and she was so sweet. And we're sitting there talking it out. It was hilarious. I was like, so what are you looking for? She was like, I don't know. And I was like, okay. So what we did is like, we started just like, we pulled up Pinterest, and cause she kind of told me her vibe. She was like, I want something like kind of moody, like ethereal. And I was like, okay, vibe. I pulled that up. So I went on Pinterest and I was like, okay, is this what you're thinking? And she said, yes. So I said, okay, let me just show you a few locations. So I pulled up Middleton Place and I was like, we love shooting here. What do you think? She said, yes, perfect. So it was like, she knew in her head what she wanted, but then she used me to kind of help guide her. And we came up with like outfits. We came up with like the location and like kind of everything. And then it all came together, which was really cool.
And I think Georgia loves that part. I think that's her favorite.
I do. I just like talking to people, and like it was just so fun because like I felt like I understood her more by just like seeing her vision, and like you can really learn a lot about people too, of like what they're drawn to, what outfits they wear, what locations they want, because like I just feel like it can tell a lot about a person at the same time. So then you can kind of pick up on like okay, like these are the vibes. This is kind of like what they're going to be like. But then
I love that. In my questionnaire for seniors, I have a bunch of like what feels like to them really random questions. But for me, it's so that we can build things out into their shoot that might like benefit them. And they don't always want it, but I give it to them as like, hey, here's some prop ideas for you based on your questionnaire. So one of my like little questions in there is, after a long day, what do you do to relax? Sometimes it's, I go to the beach with my friends. Great. Well, that's something I know about them, right? Sometimes it's, I watch Netflix in bed. Two completely different things. Sometimes it's, I go get coffee at this specific coffee shop downtown. Ooh, okay, Nugget. Let's go there for our shoot. You know, like there's just little things that you can ask that help guide how their shoot can go, but they don't even know that those are things unique about themselves that they could add to their shoot unless you guide and tell them, you know?
I love that.
So
I love that.
That's such a good idea. But I feel like everything that we talked about so far has been almost like session based, right? Like for maybe a engagement session, or obviously I've shared some experience with seniors, but like, what about for a wedding day where they've likely, other than visiting the venue, they've never been there. It's not a part of their story. They get to have less like free time during it because it's a very like timeline structure, all that kind of stuff. How do you approach a wedding day knowing you want to story tell their story still?
Yeah. So I feel like this is something that I'm continually getting better at. And I feel like a big shift has kind of happened over the past like year. So when you think about like a wedding, like it's an event. It's something that it's like, what is the word? Memorial Day. Anyway,
Memorial Day.
It's a memorable day.
Okay.
It's one of those days in your
day.
Memorable. That's what it is. It's one of those days like in your life that like you are gonna remember forever. It's like
totally
graduation. Like it's just one of those big milestone steps, right? So it's like
one of the milestone steps where
thank you.
Only certain amount of people will be in this room.
Yeah.
Right.
Time.
So when you think of it like that, it's like, again, this couple is about to embark on a day that they've never experienced, and they probably won't experience anything like it ever again. So I think one, like that's the story, right? That you're documenting. So it's like, it's almost easier to storytell at a wedding sometimes because the story, it's happening in front of you. You just have to open your eyes. You have to move your body, and you have to see it from every perspective possible because like I said, the thing is already happening in front of you. It's just how can you document it in a way that tells it all. So it's like, yes, there's going to be a small parts of the day where you're posing. There's small parts where you're pulling everything that we just talked about from sessions. You're going to use all of that, like especially with brides. Like for me, I'm a goofy person, so I'm going to want to laugh a lot in my photos versus some people are like, oh, I want those like editorial, moody. And they will like, you can pick up on like what, and sometimes I just ask, I'll be like, hey, do you like more serious or do you like more laughy poses? And they'll be like, vice versa. So you'll do a little bit of that when you're doing those kind of photos. But for the most part, I mean, you're literally you're documenting a day unfold, like them getting ready, them doing X, Y, and Z. And so I think it's more so just like how you're documenting it and getting out of just like seeing it from, because we can get so stuck on seeing it like just like this. But when you can look around and be like, oh, like how's her mom seeing it? Or like, oh, like what is what's maybe their guest perspective? Or how could I maybe shoot as if I was like an outsider, just like had walked up on the wedding and was looking in? Or, you know, you just kind of like, you're seeing the wedding unfold in so many different ways.
It's so many different perspectives, not to be like, come from a sad perspective. It's just like when you have like elderly people there, it might be the last time or last event that they been together and last chance, and like us able to catch. It's been so many, not that many, but it's been times where we just happened to catch a photo of a guest, and that guest happened to unfortunately pass away. We're able to give them something that they can cherish for the rest of their life. Like, we had a bride last year that I think a dog passed away.
Oh yeah,
in the wedding a week after, and we was able to capture video and photo, and we didn't have to, but it was just one of those things that we knew it was like very meaningful to her.
And And I think when it comes to weddings too, like, I'm sorry, that's our dog. I think when it comes to weddings, like there's lots of different things, right? So when you think about weddings, like a lot of people have spent so much time on their decorations, like the food they've picked out, the drinks they've selected, the dresses they've picked out to wear. And so I think when you can kind of be like, you're also documenting like the little things as well. And like that's going to help tell the story. Cause even like the shoes she picked out or the suit that he decided to wear or whatever, like those all are a part of who they are and their personality. So I don't know. It's like all these little moments that you can capture. And like, I genuinely think like I said, I think the biggest issue with weddings is like people kind of look at them as just like in one perspective. But like, if you can be like, oh, like how could I go shoot from like just a different angle? It's really going to help.
Yeah. That's so stretching creatively too. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys something. This is so random and so funny to me. But when Zach and I were dating, so this is, obviously like, I don't know, we've been married 5 years. So like this is a while ago, but we had just started dating or maybe even not even dating. I think we were just talking and it was 4th of July and Zach is a musician, so he sent me a song that he had written and I listened to it and it was like really depressing. And I was like, heck? Like, is he okay?
That's what he think about me.
I was like, are you good, buddy?
That's hilarious.
But it was like about like disintegrating or something. I can't even remember, but it was like really depressing. And I'm like, this is like not Zach. I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, cool. We were texting. I'm like, what was that about? Because I'm like, again, you good? And he responded like dying laughing. And he said, I decided today to stretch myself and I wrote a song from the perspective of a firework.
Wow.
And I was just like shocked because then I read it back, like the lyrics and everything. Cause he sent me, yes. And it made so much sense. And it was a beautifully written song. But when I thought it was from his perspective, I was like, bro, like,
wow. And think about like how that shifted the way you like saw the art at that point. You almost like appreciated it more.
Yeah. So I love the idea and practice of going into something creatively and saying, how can I get this from a different perspective? How can I get this from grandma's shoes? How can I get this from the groom's perspective of the bride walking down the aisle?
That's the thing too, is like you can like there's moments too where you can pick and choose of like when you can be creative. Cause like of course like you kind of have to get those important shots, right? Like those are important, but I think there's moments where you can kind of stretch yourself a little bit. So like first stances, right? Like, yeah, you can get a few shots, but maybe you could walk behind the guest and be like, oh, what would it look like if I was a guest sitting watching? Or sometimes like if the father and bride are dancing and the groom's maybe standing off to the side, like watching, how can you maybe put them in the foreground and focus on him, almost kind of like viewing, there's so many different ways you can get creative. And like,
that's cool.
I don't know. The biggest thing I say is like, I don't ever really sit down, barely, cause I'm just constantly being like, oh, could I even get like a shot of the bartenders, like pouring drinks or like handing it to guests? Or there's just like so many things you can do to like stretch yourself. I think you have to really be open to what's going on. And also too, not forcing things to be there when they're not. And like, I think like, cause every wedding is different and every wedding brings its own uniqueness to it, right? Like not one wedding is the same. And so I think you can kind of really tell like what's really important to couples on their wedding day of like where they spend a lot of time, where they spend a lot of effort and their money as well. And so I think that can kind of help lead you of like, oh, like what's really important to them to document,
That's cool. And I think it is a really important thing to remember. Every wedding is different because otherwise you probably can get in such a system. I know for seniors, for me, I can just like crank it out one by one. But when I stop and remember, every story is different. Every client is different. Every mother-daughter relationship is different because a lot of the time they'll come with their parents, that's helpful. But at the same time, I do appreciate the fact that I have the system in place that I can rely back on. Are there things on a wedding day where it's like, I always want to get this detail. I always want to get these 5 shots. Anything like that you're like, okay, I pretty much get this every wedding.
So for me, which Micah, you might be different, besides the like state the obvious shots, right? So I know like one shot I can think of in particular that I 99% try to get if the ceremony is like set up in a way where I can get behind them is I love to like shoot through like if the bridal party or the bride and groom are standing, and get like their parents, because usually parents and grandparents are sitting on the front, and I'm like, again, everyone's important there, but it's like those are like your top priority people. So it's like I make sure to get the people who are kind of sitting on those front rows, like a perspective of them and like maybe their reactions. That's always a shot I'm trying to get at a shoot or a wedding. I'm trying to think of like others that are like really specific.
Oh no.
You don't have to have any either. It was just like, I don't know. I kind of like the system, you know?
There is a system. Like there is. I mean, I always try. And you know what's honestly cool, Alex? TikTok is great. I love TikTok, and I get a lot of my research from TikTok because like you can get a lot of like what the average everyday client would want, right? Because I'll just see some photographers will post like, share with me like what you wanted from your wedding. And so I'll read through the comments and be like,
smart.
I'll see recurring themes. So like something like a lot of women were posting about, they were like, I didn't get one single like bridal portrait of just me in my dress. And so I kind of always remember that of like, okay, like we just need a good smiling, just normal picture in the dress, because I think sometimes you can stretch yourself too creatively to where it's like, we can kind of miss the basics as well. And the basics are so good too, because that's part of it too. And I think sometimes we can all be like, so like trying to be so different that we kind of forget to get like, like we need those normal shots. So I really try to prioritize like
not crooked.
Just I know.
Just don't, like because I am a crooked shooter too.
Like a good just smiling picture too. Like I always get one of like, I just tell the bride and groom, I'm like, hey, I just want like that cheesy, cute wedding picture, because I just feel like it's one of those that's like, it's always good to have. And like, I feel like for so long I kind of missed out on just like prioritizing that. And I'm just like, oh, I think like those are just so cute. And so I think that's something I've been trying to get a lot of.
That's actually the first, like my very first shot that I get is the one of them. Like if I'm doing a couple shoot, which again, I don't do a ton of couples, but even if it's like a senior shoot and it's like the mother and daughter or whatever, I always say, okay, pretend like I have my phone and this is a photo at Thanksgiving. Yes. And that's that is my prompt for it every time I start with that. And then I go from there.
The phone is great because I say that too. I just say, hey, how would you pose for an iPhone photo right now? And then I'm like, perfect. Cause like those are the typical poses that you're going to do. Like, or sometimes I'll stalk their Instagram and I'll see how they pose and just like normal iPhone photos. And
that is research right there.
And I'll kind of be like, oh, okay. Like I tell like, cause you'll kind of see like most of the time girls find their one pose that they like to do with their like significant other. And I'll be like, okay, I remember that. So let me just try to get that one that I know that they'll probably like. I love doing like a low light shot of like reception. So I feel like I used to only use flash and then really started like prioritizing like ambient lighting and just really trying to like pull myself creatively with just like low light situations, because I feel like flash gives you a whole different vibe, right? It's like cool. It's almost kind of just like, it's just different. And I feel like it fits, but I don't think it fits for everything. And so I think if there's like candles and like, you know, a really low light situation, like I want to 100% like capture that.
Mm-hmm. And then you just click denoise in Lightroom and call it a day.
Time. Yeah. And then like during that as well too, I really, you know what else I've been trying to do, Alex? So here's another one. Again, it's just more of those like getting people to smile for the camera, because I think what happened is like, I feel like there was this huge push for like documentary, candid. And it was almost like if you didn't do that, you were a horrible photographer. And it's like, hold up, like there's nothing wrong with asking people to turn and smile for a photo. Like, and so what I've been trying to do is like at cocktail hours, like if I have the time, I try to, it's uncomfortable sometimes, but I force myself to say, guys, let me just take your photo really quick. Snap, snap. And they'll be like, oh, okay, great. And smile instead of like a picture of them like eating something.
Yeah, those are the ones they're going to like more anyway.
And then like, they're going to remember their guests at their wedding. And like, so I've just been really trying to like push myself to do that, as well as obviously doing all the candid and documentary. But yeah, those are some of the must-have shots.
Okay, guys. So as we kind of like end it out a little bit, do you guys have any advice for a photographer who really wants to get into storytelling, or maybe they're just like in the beginning phase of how to storytell, but they really don't know what their next step is? You know, do you have any advice for them?
You got anything?
I'll let you start.
Okay. So I'll do like one because I feel like I have a lot. So obviously the prep work we kind of talked about, I think is really important. But I think like where you could start is like if you had a shoot today or, you know, tomorrow, if you're listening, I think the biggest thing is like, okay, how can I capture maybe the same pose, but move my body in a different place? Because genuinely, like storytelling is pretty easy when you kind of like just move your body. And so I think I'll have people walk, spin, pull into a hug a million times, but the way I am shooting it is going to help you so much. So it's like, I'll look for leaves to shoot through, or maybe I would drop my body and shoot from an above angle or shoot from a higher angle, because it's all going to help pull the story together.
Yeah.
So I would say like, that would be my biggest advice of like what you could do like at your next shoot of just like, try not to stand still and stay in one spot. And like also focus on the small things, like focus on hands, focus on like, I don't know, feet if they're running, or maybe even like flowers or certain like details of like the environment as well. Like those are fun to put into a gallery. And then maybe using like motion blur when it makes sense. Like I feel like I don't love motion blur when it doesn't make sense, but if you're doing running shots or like a car's passing by, like that's where it kind of makes sense to kind of bring the full story. Yeah.
I love that.
Anything else?
Micah, what do you think?
I would say just join a community of people that do it. I think you'll learn so much from your network or just joining a community that's really into it.
Yeah.
Because you start to feed off of it and learn a lot from it. And then you can kind of skip the headaches.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. And it did push you forward, and then all of a sudden you start doing it because it's habit, something you're seeing over and over, because you're getting inspired by it. So that's
That's really good. And speaking of community, we have photo camp coming up in September. There's my transition for you, Micah. And dead serious, guys. Like, I mean, you guys obviously know this, but I just love photo camp. It's my favorite part about my job. I love getting to build an environment for creativity, for community, and for coaching, all to happen in one place. And yeah, all the information is coming out this May, and it's May right now. So literally, like, I'm so excited just to get to like share everything. I've been like keeping everything a secret, and that's so hard for me. I am not a good secret keeper. I just want to share everything, but
just tell the people that know.
I know. I know. I've been talking to you about it since I had ideas.
I know. I'm
like,
so excited.
For some of the changes, I'm like, Georgia, what do you think about this?
It was funny because when you told me like what you wanted to do, I think we kind of said it at the same time, because I said the idea and you said, wait, and then
I was like, I've literally been looking at that. That's so funny. So I can't wait to get to share it, and obviously get to have you guys in September. But for now, where can people find and follow you?
So we are at GM Photo and Film on Instagram. We are, I think, GM Visions on TikTok. Okay, so the thing with that is our original North Carolina business was G&M Visions, but we moved to South Carolina, and I didn't realize I didn't get a new business. So anyway, we had to dissolve that one. So G&M Visions no longer exists. We are now.
Oh my gosh!
Hear this show because they are coming for us.
Anyway, we are now G&M Photo in South Carolina.
Okay,
but like, it's just too complicated to change it everywhere, and like our website is still G&M Vision.
This
so it's
supposed to be a simple thing. You're just supposed to tell your title name. You just went deep dive.
She's yapping.
Anyway,
it's okay. I told you this was casual.
And then our website is GM Visions Photography.
Okay, so let's recap. On Instagram, you're GM Photo and Film.
How about start there, because you can get everything else.
How about this? I'll put it in the show notes, guys.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, go.
That was amazing. Okay, I love it. Well, honestly, that is it. We were just like yapped for so long, and I'm so glad that we got to like just hang out. We totally should have done this on like in the same location so we could go get lunch after. What were we thinking?
Next time.
Next time. We still need to do a double date too. So I'll text you guys after. But anyway, for those of you guys who are listening, I love you guys so, so much. And I will see you guys next Thursday for another episode of Let's Create with Alex Blake. Bye.